What's up, Minecrafters? SirRobHiFi here, back at the Ghast trap. Now, I covered in my last video how ghasts take damage from a block that is 1 over, and then you go up 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th block up. That will hit a ghast and cause suffocation damage, and a block there will cause damage to any tall mob, so zombie pigman, blaze. And the one I didn't mention was magma cubes, and I discovered that it's the one in between the two diagonally, so it's 1 over and the 3rd block up. So when you're looking at it, it's the 3 blocks diagonal like that. So tall mobs, full-size magma cubes, then ghasts. That would hit all types of mobs if you had that set up. And if you remove one, you can let through magmas without taking any damage, and so on. Anyway, the next thing I wanted to cover was the design itself, and the fact that it takes the ghast so long to get from the top, especially if they spawn up very top there, for them to make it down to the bottom of the system. So actually there was a suggestion from a guy called MKII, I think I pronounced that right, that I put in rail carts at each level and just pick them up when they spawn in rail carts, literally for each level. And this is something I'd been thinking about, system similar, but a couple of months ago I think it was now, where I was trying to come up with ideas for mobs in carts. I started out with doing passive mobs, and then I was doing stuff in the nether, and I was trying to come up with a way to capture ghasts in carts then, but I scrapped those ideas. I got very frustrated with it. But now that I'm revisiting it, you know, one of the things with designing and experimenting is you've got to be willing to trash things that either don't work at all or don't work well enough. And this is just not working well enough. It does have its positive sides, but anyway, we're going to move on. For now, I may revisit that. So I put in some minecart tracks, and this is just a simple loop that goes out to the end and then back on the inside. I've got it running anti-clockwise, so that when a cart picks up a ghast, it comes off of here, and because of this glitch with the sloping detector rail, occupied carts split off to here and they fall down the tube here, and empty carts will just continue around the system. What I will do then is I will replace this. Instead of just having blocks, I will have fence posts, and with that you can put a pressure plate, and when an occupied cart falls down the tube, it'll hit the plate here, and you can put some redstone and trigger a cart from a Pez dispenser to replace the one that has just left, so that you'll have a new cart running around to pick up the next ghast. Now, what's happening right now is they're dropping all the way down to the bottom, and as you can see, they're just sitting on this rail for now, and there's a whole bunch of ghasts lined up down there. Now, I've got one here in the system so that we can throw a cart in, and I can show you how it works. Again, it's very simple. It's just a repetition of a simple idea that goes around and round on each level. So that cart goes off into the distance here, loops around and comes back down through the system, and when it gets to here, it'll pick up the ghast and then split off and fall down. And because of the distance from this rail above, it's taking some damage there, but whatever, we'll deal with that later. Yeah, what I did was I put in these rails 3 blocks over from the spawning strip itself, so when the ghast spawns, triggers this, gets pushed out into the aisle here, and this is 1, 2, 3 and 4 blocks wide, so it's the width of the ghast when it gets pushed out. So it's getting pressed against the cobble and the glass, and the only direction it can move is a long strip in either direction, but wherever it goes down the strip it will be pushed and still be stuck against the track, and every time a cart goes by it will definitely pick up the ghast. And you just saw me pick one up just then. So it's pretty simple and it works, but there are a couple of flaws, and one of them is anytime you've got cart systems, if you have something drop on the rail, loot, or if there's a mob standing on the rail, it can really foul up your system. And because of this drop, which I needed to do to take advantage of this little glitch on the detector rail, we've got too high space here, which means pigmen can spawn right here. And if a pigman's standing there when a cart comes around, it's going to rebound, and it's going to be going the wrong way around the system. It's going to start messing things up. So that's something I'm going to have to look out for. And another thing is when the cart drops, if you leave it open like this, then when the cart drops down this kind of distance, like this section here is completely in free fall, the cart will remember how far it's fallen, and if you let this cart leave the rail, it will apply the damage to the mob. And you may have seen a video I did a little while back where I was killing Enderman using that little glitch. So you could use it to finish these ghasts off. They only have 10 hearts, I believe it is, still. So you could use that to kill them, but if you don't want to kill them, you're going to have to take that into account. If you have them leaving this track to go into, say, a crusher, then the damage from the fall is going to be applied to them immediately. So I think that's about it for now. The other thing I should probably mention is a suggestion from Roboticost. He brought up the fact that, you know, if they still drop ghast tears even if they're not killed by a player, so if you suffocate the ghasts, will they still drop ghast tears? Well, yes, they do. They still drop ghast tears even if you just suffocate them. So unlike blazes and spiders, where it requires a player kill to get the spider eyes or the blaze rods, with ghast tears you can suffocate them and still get the tears. So I could simply have spawning strips with pistons coming out into their hitbox at the height that we saw earlier, which was 2 blocks over and then the 4th block up. So if I had a piston pushed into this position, it would start suffocating the ghast and it would kill it right here on the strip. Now the problem there is going to be the loot, because when you kill any mob, or if you kill a player or a player dies, I'm sure you've all noticed that the loot and the experience orbs just explode in an area around the player. So collecting the loot is going to be a serious problem, because if it dies here, you're going to have loot dropping over here onto these cobblestone blocks, on here, on the strip itself. Some of them will fall off into the void, and there's no real easy way to deal with that. And doubly so being in the nether because there's no water. So I don't think I'm really going to be looking at that option seriously, because collecting the loot is going to be such a nightmare, and it's going to just, it's not going to be able to be sorted out so that you get 100% drop. See, there we go, there's a pigman now in that spot. There's only a handful of spots in this system where a pigman can spawn where I don't want it to spawn, and this is one of them. So that's an issue. So every time I try and work with carts, I come up with these same issues, and I don't know. If you've got any ideas, then feel free to post a comment. I'm very open to suggestions always, and the whole reason I took this on partly was to try and get some interest out there and see if some people would, you know, take up the challenge and try and come up with something, because all I'm seeing at the moment is loads and loads of variations on XP farms, and we all want one of those, you know, but I think that's kind of been covered, and I can't see much room for improvement on that, because just the way the spawning works, there's, you know, once you've got a system that maximizes the possibilities, there's nothing really you can do beyond that apart from get really lucky and find a cluster of spawners that you can all hook up together to increase yield. But apart from that, I think that's covered. This is something that just has not been really covered and systems worked on and ideas played around with, not from what I've seen anyway. So the challenge is there, guys. Have a go, you know, see what you can come up with, and let me know. Alright guys, see you later.